Okay, I think we are on page 322. This is chapter 15, verse 17, roughly. 322, this is in the art scroll, Chumash of Rashi. And, as we said last time, oh, you're getting that? Okay. Yaakov arrives in Haran, and Rachel tells her father Lavan that he's arrived, and he comes running out and embraces him and kisses him and looking for hidden gems like the guys do when you travel in the airport. And nothing, zero, penniless, not even a star. Like Eliezer came with a star, with a document that he had given all of his property to Yitzchak. That's how he negotiated the marriage with Rivka. No, Yaakov comes with nothing. So he says, well, I can't kick you out since you're my kin. That wouldn't be nice. It's a wonderful welcome, hey? And then after a month he says, you shouldn't serve me for nothing, which means the instant he took him in, he started working him. You don't stay here for nothing, fella. Okay, you're my relative, but still, work. And but no mention of what the wages will be. So in 15, Lavan said to Yaakov, is you my brother that you serve me for work for me without charge? Because you are my brother, and you're serving me, but still, you deserve to be paid. Tell me, what are your wages? This is after a month, so you can understand a little bit already about Lavan's character. Parting with money wasn't easy for him. But now it becomes embarrassing. You know, he's working in public, everybody sees what's going on. Okay, so now the Torah puts in a parenthetical remark. Lavan had two daughters, and the older was Leah, and the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were tender. Rachel was beautiful of form and beautiful of appearance. And it says, Jacob loved Rachel. So he said, I'll work for you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. Now, does anything strike you as needing explanation here? Anything strike you that could be questionable? So, what does it mean he'll work for 7 years for Rachel? What's the for? What does he mean? What is he saying?
He just can't have her. He has to show that he wants to work for her. He's making like a trade almost.
Yes. What is he trading for the right to marry her?
He's trading his work, because maybe he's showing that he's not ready to give her for free. He has to pay for some sort of...
Meaning that he's paying 7 years' wages. He's working for nothing to get the right to marry her. 7 years' wages is a considerable amount of money, right? And you might ask, was the choice of 7 years arbitrary? Could he just as well have said 215 months, or 4,000 days, or 10 years, or 5 years, or 2 years? That needs help. That definitely needs help. And also, it says that he loved her. Now, if you remember, when Yitzchak got married, at the end of Chai Sarah, it says, and we spoke about it then, I don't expect you to remember it, here, if you look back on 264, this is Kaf Daled, chapter 24, Pasuk Samach Zayin 67. So this is when Isaac got married, right? Eliezer brought Rivka back to him. 67 says, and Isaac brought her into the tent, Sarah his mother. He married her. She became his wife. And he loved her. Loving came last. And if I told you then that instead of all the lectures that you hear titled Love and Marriage, we would title them Love in Marriage. And I spoke to you then about the difference between infatuation and love. And we said, do Orthodox Jews or from Jews or Haredi Jews have a honeymoon? And I said, yes, on the 10th anniversary, because by the 10th anniversary, you've built a life together. That's a time to celebrate. You're just getting married, just starting out. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of adjustment to be done, a lot of investment to be done on both sides, a lot of effort at identification and mutual feeling. So here we are being told, with respect to Yaakov, that he loved her. He's been there a month. He met her for the first time in his life a month ago. Certainly a big contrast with what it says about Yitzchak, his father. So that would definitely be worth understanding. And here it specifies that Rachel was beautiful. Should that be taken as the cause of the love? The immediately preceding words are, Rachel was beautiful of form and beautiful appearance. Jacob loved Rachel. Usually, when you have a sequence of events in the Torah, I wouldn't say every time, but very often, if it says A, B, C, D, it means A caused B, B caused C, or is the reason for, or the means for. They're related. It's not just a chronology of events, like you have in history books, 1787 is this, 1789 was that. No, it means that they're connected. So this has to be understood. Now, let's take a look at Rashi, because he's going to fill in some of the background, and then maybe we'll have Leah's eyes were tender. First of all, since the point here is that Lavan is saying, what wages do you want? And in fact, Yaakov loves Rachel. And he's going to work for Rachel. What do I care about Leah's eyes? Why is that there? So your helpful, friendly translator puts in parentheses. That's nice of him. And I think that's not unreasonable to think it's a parenthetical remark. But why does the Torah make a parenthetical remark? So look at what Rashi says in 17. She was under the impression that she was destined to ascend to the lot of Esau, to become Esau's wife. After all, this family has two brothers. This family has two sisters. And they're related families. And there's the older and the older and the younger and the younger. So Esau is the oldest son, and Leah is the oldest daughter, so they should marry. And Yaakov's the youngest son, and Rachel's the younger daughter, so they should marry. That's what she understood. Well, Esav had a reputation. She knew about it. And she was not looking forward to that. So her eyes were tender because she was crying all the time. Now that, of course, doesn't make you very attractive, right? Did Jacob think of this? Was this in Jacob's mind, the whole thing? We'll have to see. And she would cry, because everybody would say, Rebecca has two sons, and Lavan has two daughters. The elder daughter for the elder son, the younger daughter for the younger son. And we will have to also think about the idea when we hear about what everybody says. Now, it's true that everybody could be wrong. Maybe even everybody is often wrong, but they're always wrong. So when you have this idea that everybody says, and in the end doesn't work out that way, you need to think, well, were they just fantasizing from the beginning? Well, they had this, either superficial, childish idea, but it didn't work out, or was there some truth in it? There was some truth in it, but in fact, it didn't work out that way for some other reason. But the fact that they thought it was so is something which should be taken seriously. It shouldn't be just dismissed. I told you the story of Shmuel and Ablat, the non-Jewish sorcerer who were friends, and they saw a group of workers going out to cut reeds in the forest, the swamp, and Ablat pointed to one of the Jews and said, "He's not coming back. He's going to die there." Shmuel says, not true. When they came back, they were all there, including that fellow. So Shmuel called him over and said, empty your sack. And he emptied his sack of all the reeds that he had cut. And in the sack there was a poisonous snake sliced in half. And Shmuel said to the worker, did you do anything unusual today while you were out of work? He said, well, I'm in charge. Our custom is everybody brings food for lunch. And I collect all the food, and I portion it out equally to everybody who's there. And one fellow didn't bring food for lunch today. So I put in extra food for him as if he put it in. And that way he was able to eat lunch. And Shmuel said, Tzedakah tatzil Rabbis, charity saves from death. And the word concludes, Ein Mazel Yisrael. The Jewish people doesn't have mazel. Now, sometimes people try to translate mazel as luck. That's dead wrong. We don't believe in luck. Mazel can mean some heavenly force that arranges affairs and so forth and so on. So now, Tosfos points out, let's figure out what happened here. Ablat said he's not coming back, he's going to die. Shmuel said, not so. Ha! Shmuel is right! And the sorcerer's wrong! But there was a poisonous snake waiting for him, wasn't there? Poisonous snake was in his bag. So the sorcerer wasn't fantasizing. He wasn't just dumb, just wrong. No, he saw something. What he didn't know is that something could be stronger than that and push it off. But he wasn't just dumb. You mustn't, you have to look open-mindedly at these pronouncements which turn out to be a mistake. Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Avram Avinu, you're going to have children. And he says to him, look at the stars. So Chazal say, Avram said to Kadosh Baruch Hu, I see in the stars that I'm not going to have children. The pasuk says, Habetna Hashemayma, Ureis Kochavim, Usporosam, Kim Tuchal Usporosam, gaze at the heavens. So Rashi points out that the word lahabit in Hebrew, which means to gaze, always means to look down at something. Which means that Kadosh Baruch Hu took him out, it was nighttime, and raised him above the stars. And he looked down at the stars. And then Chazal say, I'm showing you that you can be raised above the stars. So again, Avraham Avinu said, I see in the stars. Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't say to him, go back to philosophy 101. Stars? Are you kidding? Stars have no power. Stars have no effect. I'm running the world. No, he didn't say that. What he said was, the stars are there, and they do have meaning, and they do have power, and they do arrange things, but you can climb above it. I'll take you above it, so you'll be looking down on them. And therefore you can escape that which was programmed into the stars. So we shouldn't simply dismiss a statement, especially when factually it turns out to be false. We shouldn't dismiss it as if it's just wrong-headed. We have to understand what about it was accurate and what about it was not. And my lesson here clear? So we have to do that here with respect to this one as well. Okay. Now, look at Rashi at 18. We'll skip the first Rashi, the second Rashi. Baruch bitcha ktana. This has become a phrase in modern Hebrew, and you'll see why. Why all these signs? Rochel is the name of a girl. He's saying, what wages would you like? Well, Lavan can't take somebody else's girl and give them to him. He says, I'm working for Rochel. Which Rochel would that be? Rochel from Cincinnati? Obviously, it's his Rochel. No. Bitcha ktana, your younger daughter. No, okay. He has two daughters. This is the younger daughter. Just say Bitcha ktana. No, with Lavan you seal all the openings. You stitch it in gold because he's a liar and he'll try to trick you. So he said like this: because Jacob knew of Lavan that he was a fraud, he said to him, "I'll work for you for Rachel." And if he might say to give him some other Rachel, maybe he has a niece named Rachel. Or maybe he has a servant girl named Rachel, or he'll say she's named Rachel, or who knows what. If he's going to try to weasel out of it that way by avoiding the name Rachel from the marketplace, the verse says, your daughter. Now, could have said just daughter without younger. And if he might say, I will change Leah's name, and I will give her name Rachel, So he wants to give. So they used to be called Rachel and Leah, but now they're called Leah and Rachel. And now's the time to fulfill the contract. So I'll give you the one that's called Rachel at the time of fulfilling the contract. Which reminds me, I lived here in '64, and the inflation was so bad under the leftists that in the dry cleaning stores there was a sign up: you pay as of the price of the day when you collect the item. Because the price changed almost every day. It went up almost every day. So he said, okay, you said Rachel then, but this is the Rachel now. So in case he says that, so he says to her, the younger. And to prove to you that Jacob's worry wasn't idle, despite this, it didn't help because Lavan did deceive him and gave him Leah. That's what he did. So it's clear that Yaakov read Lavan correctly. Okay? Now, one more thing I want to put into the picture, and then I'll give you a general picture to explain the whole thing. Verse 19, Lavan said, it's better that I give it to you than I give it to another man. Remain with me. Again, what an enthusiastic endorsement. What a wonderful, inspired description. You're better than somebody else, so I guess I'll go along with it. And the guy was really crude. Now, so Jacob worked for 7 years for Rachel. They seemed to him as a few days because of his love for her. Now, does that sentence make sense? I think on the surface it is absolutely mysterious. Let's imagine you're living in Russia. And you and Danya decide that you're going to get married. You go to the local registry, say, do you love each other? We do? Oh, how nice. Mazel tov. Well, I didn't say mazel tov. And they say, okay, the first date available that we have for marriages is in 2030. But you won't mind. You love each other, right? So 7 years won't matter to you. They'll go by as but a few days because you love each other. Does that sound reasonable? If you really love each other, every day you wait is an eternity. Every day you wait is murder. And here we're being told that because of his love of her, the 7 years went by is but a few days. So there are a lot of mysteries here. Now I'm going to tell you the one key which will help us solve all the mysteries. And I told it to you last time, but that was three weeks ago. On page 320, just turn back one leaf. When he's at the well and the shepherds are there, and they say, oh, here comes Rachel, Lavan's daughter. Verse 11 says, he kissed her, raised up a voice and wept. So here, I think, is really the key to the whole story. We asked then, okay, she's your cousin, but still, and in public, I mean, where do we do this? Do we not do this? So, in fact, it's brought down, there was a Gemara like this, and the Gemara, it's brought down halacha, that if a man knows that he has no inappropriate thoughts or feelings, then there's no prohibition against touching. Indeed, the Gemara tells a story of an Amora who's going with his Talmidim, with his disciples, and they came to a wedding, and the Rebbe picked up the bride on his shoulders and danced with her. And they said to him, Rebbe, how you talking? Is that something which you've done? And he said, if to you she's a piece of wood, then you could do it also. And the Gemara has a case, so other cases where it's so that's not one. But what? So then there's no, here also a piece of logic. Okay, it's not forbidden. It's not an avla. It's not a crime. But why do it? You don't do everything that's not criminal, right? You didn't have 6 sandwiches for lunch, even though it's not criminal. You just don't do that. Why did he do it? So the key to the whole passage is that at this point in his life, Jacob is a prophet. He's had the dream of the ladder. Kadosh Baruch Hu himself has spoken to him. A prophet doesn't see things the way other people see things, and a prophet doesn't live the way another person lives. Indeed, it says he wept, and Chazal tells us he wept over the destruction of the, was this destruction of the temple, or is it they're going into exile?
But he won't be buried with her. No?
He won't be buried with her, right. So he's already seeing the future. So, I suggest to you that when Yaakov looks at Rachel, he sees the mother of the Jewish people. His vision isn't perfect because Leah is also going to be part of it. But he sees her, and when he sees her at the well, it doesn't see Leah at all. Just sees her. He sees in her the mother of the Jewish people. He immediately commits himself to this marriage because he as a prophet sees that this has to happen. And he's right, it does have to happen. So when we said with respect to Yitzchak that the love was the fruit of marriage, what is it in marriage that makes the love happen? What it is in marriage is the commitment of marriage. I said the living together also contributes to it, and it does for ordinary people. For someone like Yaakov and also like Yitzchak, that can happen very rapidly because you're talking about someone who has prophecy. But it's the commitment that's crucial. He made the commitment at the beginning, so much so that when there was an opportunity to arrange it with the father, he does so and he offers a very extravagant price, 7 years' wages, so as to be able to seal the deal, even though Lavan cheats him afterwards, but that was what his kavanah was. Now, 7 years, and it went by as but a few days. Abraham and Yitzchak are ancestors of the Jewish people. One, so to speak, weakness in their ancestry is that both of them gave birth to non-Jews. Abraham gave birth to at least 7 non-Jews. 7. Because he had Ishmael first, and after Sarah died, he took Hagar again, and had 7 more sons, and maybe a daughter. So if you look at Avram's family, he had a lot of non-Jews there. Yitzchak gave birth to Yaakov and Esav, and Esav was also detached from the Jewish people. Yaakov, the Gemara calls it Mitaso Shlema, his bed was complete. All of his children stayed within the Jewish people, which means that Yaakov and his family are a microcosm of the Jewish people. You can't say that about Abraham and his family, and you can't say that about Yitzchak and his family. You can't say that. So Yaakov knows he has a challenge. He has a challenge to do something which his father and grandfather didn't do, to create the microcosm of the Jewish people. And here I'll just insert a footnote. The fact that he did something they didn't do doesn't mean he's greater than they. Listen carefully. He did something greater than they did, but he wasn't greater than they. And the reason is very simple, because it's like the dwarf standing on the shoulders of a giant. He sees farther than the giant, but he's not doing it on his own. But he's standing on the. By the way, that expression goes back to Newton. So here he did something they didn't do because they laid the groundwork. There were 2 generations of preparation before that, and he's doing. But he has a challenge that they didn't have. And this challenge is specifically in creating a family, which you do together with your wife. So he sees in her the one with whom he's going to address this challenge. So the commitment is absolute. And he sees prophetically that she is a right woman for him. So all this is already included in. Now, he's choosing 7 years as preparation for this challenge. 7 is a number, 7 units of time is a number of preparation, of healing, of rehabilitation. 7 days to overcome tumor of contact with the dead. 7 days to overcome certain types of bleeding for men and women. For men, it's not bleeding; it's another kind of emission. To rehabilitate. There are 7 years in sabbatical cycle. He's choosing 7 units of time in preparation for starting this challenge. Now ask yourself, suppose you have a challenge 3 months down the road. You're taking your LSATs, or to get into law school, or your pre-med exams to get into medical school, and you're studying, and you're preparing. How does the time pass? Quickly or slowly? Quickly. God, only 2 weeks left, and these 7 books to read and memorize. Time goes very quickly when you're preparing for a difficult challenge. So I suggest to you that that's what the pasuk here means. Ba'ahavoso oso, because of his love of her. Not love, his love of her. His love of her wasn't like the love of normal people, of average people. Love of a prophet, the third patriarch, but the Jewish people, that's what grounded his love of her, together with his perception of her as one who could share with him in this challenge. And that explains why it went by as but a few days. Okay, that's that part. Now, when it's also I told you before, but you see how things come back to be. When Rivka was pregnant with the twins, and she didn't know the twins, and it says she was in great distress. She said, my life is worthless. It's going to go on like this. I'm going to die. And she just felt something that terribly distressed her. So Chazal tells us, the Pasuk doesn't give any clues to what was so distressing to her. It says that she would pass by a place of Torah study, she would feel a stirring and a pressure, as if what's inside wants to come out. And when you walked past a place of idol worship, she felt a stirring and a pressure, as if what's inside wants to come out. That terribly disturbed her. When we said we have to see exactly why. And then the comfort that she gets is that it's twins. And one wants to go this way, and one wants to go that way. And then she's satisfied. She's satisfied, right? So I explained to you then, which I heard from Rabbi Amram Taub, of Baltimore, a wonderful pshat, that there are two types of people: vertebrates and jellyfish, sort of. And a vertebrate is someone who stands for something. He has principles, dedicates himself consistently to his principles. And a jellyfish has no fixed shape. You can put him in a square box or a round box or an elliptical box. You know, he has flexibility. He's at home in any environment. No principles. So her thought was, if what's inside me wants to come out when they go past that place of Torah study and also a place of idol worship, I'm giving birth to a jellyfish. And a jellyfish is very bad because when Elijah challenges the prophets of Baal to a contest in the Carmel Mountains, you build an altar, I'll build an altar, we'll both put animals on, no fire, we'll see who sends down fire from heaven. And he is arguing with them. At one point he says, Ad Mosayatem Posilo Shteasifim, how long are you going to jump from one side to the other? We talk about straddling the line. There, the image in the Torah there, in the Tanakh there is jumping. You're jumping from one position to the other. You have two opposing positions, and you're jumping from one to the other. How long are you going to do that? If, Elijah goes on, if you believe in the Kadosh Baruch Hu, be committed to him, be committed 100%. And if you believe in Baal, then believe in him and commit yourself to him 100%. Be consistent. So the reader says, gee, Elijah, I'm not quite sure why I understand your recommendation. Yes, if you're committed to God, believe in God, you should be follow him 100%. But if you're committed to Baal, why not cheat from time to time? You know, would that be a bad deal? Sometimes, offer that sacrifice to God also. Why would you want the person to be consistently attached to Baal? And the answer is because if you're a consistent person, even if your principles are wrong, if your principles will be disproved, then you'll turn around and become in a principled way connected to the truth. But if you're a jellyfish, then when you're healed, when you're in Rome, you do like the Romans, and when you're in Athens, you do like the Athenians, and when you're in Los Angeles, you do, I don't want to finish that sentence. You're just at home everywhere, and you adapt to wherever you are. So she thought she was giving birth to a jellyfish, at home in a house of Torah study, and at home in idol worship. That to her was devastating. No, says the Kadosh Baruch Hu, you have twins. This one is this and that one is that. And I put these words in her mind. She says, okay, the one who's oriented towards Torah study, wonderful. And the one who isn't, if he isn't a jellyfish, if he's principled, we have a chance. We have a chance to work with him. We have a chance to confront him, a chance to persuade him. And if we're successful, we can turn him into someone who's dedicated to Kadosh Baruch Hu also. So it's not a condemnation. It's not a fixed tragedy. It's still something which can be handled. That's what I said then. But I want to add something now, and then I'll take a question. The deeper background is this. People misunderstand that midrash. I've answered it. I won't go over it again. They misunderstand it to say Jacob was good and Esau was bad. Esau was going for idol worship, so obviously he's bad. In our tradition, people aren't born bad. They aren't born bad. They're born with potentials. They're born with challenges. They're born with shortcomings that have to be overcome and rectified. They're not born bad. So, our tradition tells us that there are two different types of activity which are necessary to perfect the world. One is bringing higher forces, higher values into the world, bringing purity into the world, tahara, bringing holiness into the world, kedusha. That's one process. The other process is ridding the world of its damaged or damaging elements, tuma and evil, and both of them have to be done to bring the good into the world and to chase the evil out of the world. And the original plan for Yaakov and Esav was to split the work. To split the work. So Yaakov would be bringing good into the world, and Esav would be chasing the bad out of the world. And there would have been 4 patriarchs, not 3. And the older would marry the older, and the younger would marry the younger, just as the people thought. Esav would marry Leah, and Esav would be the one to chase the evil out of the world. And Yaakov would marry Rachel, and he'd bring good into the world. That was the higher resolution. That was, so to speak, the way in which the situation could be perfected. And there were an equal number of men and women, patriarchs and matriarchs. That was what could have happened. And then, when you talk about the 4 legs of the chariot that carries the divine presence, it wouldn't have been David. It would have been Esau. Because he would have been number 4. That was the resolution that was hoped for. And what I said last time, what I said just a moment ago, when I said last time, is quite correct. Esau is, first of all, when the fetus wants to come out, it means that's where I belong. But I don't belong there to worship idols. I belong there to destroy idol worship. That's my locus. That's my environment of activity. That's what the pressure shows, where they are naturally situated. Now, as a matter of fact, Esau failed. So there's another chazal that says, because Esau failed, Jacob took Esau's portion in Olam Haba, which means that he had a portion in Olam Haba waiting for him. He wasn't programmed to be bad. He could have succeeded. It was just a giant failure that he didn't. So that means that when these people saw, the older to the older, the younger to the younger, that wasn't just a hallucination. It wasn't just a simple mistake, older, younger, younger. No, they saw something genuine. He didn't deserve it. He didn't live up to it, and that's why it didn't happen. That's the little deeper background I was going on here. Your question.
I was going to ask, you answered it already. It was about if Esau was born in Russia, based on that logic. But you
This is very, very important. Many, many people misunderstand this statement in Rashi. And given this explanation, you can learn something one step further. If this Rashi, which sounds like it, isn't saying it, then you have to be cautious in your own understanding of any Rashi. Sounds like Rashi is saying something, but who knows? Maybe further reflection will show that Rashi meant something else. You had a question.
So, considering the concept of the jellyfish and the person that's
The
stands
vertebrate,
straight,
yeah.
and the vertebrate, in terms of Lavan, why would he care if his daughter gets married with Esav? If he's, why would actually Lavan?
Why does he want Leah to be married to him?
To Yaakov? Why?
Oh, it's very simple. He says later, yes, Hashem will see it. He says, I see that since you came to me, everything's been going great. Everything's been going great. I mean, profit after profit after profit. And this catches him for another 7 years. He's stuck for another 7 years there. What a good deal. Yes? You hear that? And after 14 years, he said, please don't leave me, because I see I'm doing well. Don't leave me now. So it was just a trick to get him to stay there another 7 years. That's all. Just self-serving. Yeah.
I might be wrong, but the Rashi here, I'll work for you 7 years. These are the few days that his mother had told him. Is Rashi implying here that Rivka also has a capacity for prophecy, and is that related to Yaakov's capacity in some sense?
I'll tell you, it's a tricky. I didn't go into it when that was said also before, because in the end it didn't happen. And it was 20 years. So even if you say that 7 years are like a few days, right? But in the end, it was 20 years. And Yaakov himself agreed voluntarily to stay the last 6 years out of Akar Satov. So it's a little tricky. And I can't work it out in detail to say what it means. That's why I left it. Yeah.
So if the way we would interpret it is Esau wants to go to the places of idol worship in order to destroy them, why was Rivka concerned about that then?
I didn't say want. I said the pressure was there because that's his natural locus. I didn't use the word want. I don't want to credit a fetus with that much understanding. But again, because until she got the prophecy, she thought it was one fetus. Now, how could one fetus feel equally at home in a house of the place of Torah study and in idol worship? That means it's not a vertebrate; it's a jellyfish.
Couldn't the reasoning be that the fetus would feel at home during in a place of Torah study that also then seek to destroy the place of idol worship?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a nice thought. Why must it be split up with two? I think this is a very good question. Why either she, well, let me figure this out. Is there any general reason why? I think the truth is that different people have different foci. King David wanted to build a temple. God said to him, it's explicit in the Psukim, he said to him, you fought wars, you shed blood, you can't build a temple. Every one of the wars was a mitzvah. Every one of the wars was a mitzvah. He got reward in Olam Haba for fighting those wars. But someone who fights wars can't build a temple, because the temple is the sort of shalom, and you're involved in war. So it's like he couldn't do both. One person couldn't do both of those things. You have Avram and Yitzchak, which were both, Avram was chesed, and Yitzchak was din, two separate characteristics, not both. No. Now, of course, you'll have Yaakov who combines them in a certain way, so, but you see a general pattern. Now, right, and we're talking now about, because Rivka saw that. She saw that Abraham and Yitzchak had different characteristics. Each one had something to contribute, and neither could contribute what the other contributed. So she thought of it in terms of two and not one.
But Yaakov ended up doing both of those, you're saying?
Yes, he did. But if that wasn't lechatchila, many things that happen in Jewish history aren't lechatchila, as we would say, aren't the best possible way that things should happen. In fact, if you look, the art scroll Shir Hashirim, Song of Songs, the introduction there traces the ancestry of the Mashiach, and there are all sorts of events which are on the borderline, like they're not the sort of thing you would volunteer for. Yehuda having relations with his former daughter-in-law and giving rise to the son who's going to be the ancestor of Mashiach. I mean, there are a lot of things there that are quite tricky. Boaz and Ruth, is also quite tricky. And she was married to a non-Jew who was evil and left. And you wouldn't, if you wanted to, there are other religions that do this sort of thing, and they don't do it that way. Everyone was perfect and everyone was wonderful, and they were all godly and they were all angels, and they were all the purity. Our thought is, one of our jobs is to bring things up out of their nature to realize their potential that they don't have. That's just to be purity. And of course, if you take that too far, then you end up with the heresy and the crimes of Shabtai Tzvi, who took that idea too far and used it as a way to cancel the restrictions. There are absolute restrictions. By the way, the Chassidim say that the word asur, which you read as forbidden, asur literally means bound, tied up. The asur means to bind something up or to tie it up. This is something which can't be actualized. It can't be realized. Or if it is, it's a disaster. Not the sort of thing that you can rectify by realizing it. The Chassidish Forum talk about that. So that's roughly what's going on there. Is somebody else? Yeah.
So you said that you wouldn't attribute something like understanding to like a baby in the womb or so on. So how would you characterize that resolve or that principledness that precedes something like knowledge?
I see. We're not crediting the fetus with vision. She's walking past the base measure. Told us Abraham. I bet they're learning in there. Let's go. Now, we're not. It's like magnetism. It's just a certain gravity that attracted the soul because that's what the soul is destined for. But it's not conscious, not a conscious thing. Okay, so that's the background here. Now, I went back to 322. Now comes the capstone, what I told you. I think it's the most dramatic way of saying it. We're now at verse 21. So the 7 years go by. Jacob said to Lavan, deliver my wife, for my term is fulfilled, and I will come to her. Okay, that's not bad in English, but the Hebrew is much more explicit in terms of what it implies. It implies fulfilling the marriage. I want you to look at the Rashi here, because the Rashi here is very dramatic. This is 21, the fourth line. And I will come to her. Is it not true that the lightest of the light, meaning the most vulgar person, does not speak so? You're talking to the girl's father. Your uncle, by the way. You know? Give her to me and we'll go to bed. What? Let alone, this is the third patriarch and a prophet and everything else, but even vulgar people don't talk that way. What could he possibly have had in mind? So, the answer that's given here is that he said it with intent to beget offspring. Now, this is a Bereshis Rabbah, the statement of Chazal in the Medrash. So, what this does is to confirm what I told you from the beginning. He loved her. Why did he love her? Because he saw her in her the mother of the Jewish people. Now he's saying to Lavan, listen, I know who you are. I know what you want. I know what you believe in. And I'm telling you, I have my principles, I have my goals, and that's what I'm doing this for. I can say this to you because you know me and you know what I mean. I don't mean sex. Not that there's anything wrong with sex, but I don't mean that. What I mean is, I'm building a family. The family descendants are going to stand at Sinai, receive the Torah. I'm not embarrassed about that. Why should I be embarrassed about that? This is a very, very deep thing. This confirms what I said at the beginning, that that's what he saw in Rachel, and that's what he committed himself to. So, Lavan gathered all the people, place made a feast. The evening he took Leah, his daughter, brought it to him, and he came to her. And now your translator puts in dashes here. This is a very good thing. I'll talk about this in a minute. Lavan gave Zilpah, his maidservant, to Leah, his daughter, maidservant. It was the morning, and behold, it was Leah. Golly, that does require some explanation, hey? How come all night long he didn't know who it was? So, first of all, let's credit that it was done in the dark. That's the normal, usual way that we would do such things. But didn't they talk to each other? Didn't they, somehow communicate? So look at Rashi on 25. This is a key to another very deep thing. And it was in the morning, behold, it was Leah. But at night, it wasn't Leah. So he translates, I would read it wasn't Leah with a question mark, exclamation point. What? Wasn't? He says Jacob assumed that she was not Leah. Okay, that's true. I wouldn't say the words meant that. But at any rate, at nighttime it wasn't obvious, right? Why? because Jacob had given signs to Rachel by which she could identify herself to him. Because, as the Midrash spells in more detail, when they got married, Rachel said to Yaakov, "You're in trouble because my father is a deceiver. He's deceitful." And Yaakov, quoting a pasuk from Tehillim, said, "With those who are deceitful, you can be clever." He said, "I'm also clever. I'm also clever. So I'm a match for him. I can handle it." So before they got married, Yaakov said to Rachel, "I'm aware that he might try to switch Leah for you. That's why he made the condition, Rachel bitcha ktana," right? And Rashi went through every phrase to say, it's Rachel, not another, and it's your daughter, not another Rachel, and the little one, because you shouldn't change the names. He was quite clear about that, right? Well, we'll set it up. I'll give you secret signs, so that when we get together in the evening, you'll give me the signs. I don't know it's you. So how come it didn't work? How come it didn't work? But when she saw that they were taking Leah to him, just as they suspected, she said, "Now my sister will be humiliated." She therefore arose and gave her those signs. This is one of the most astonishing incidents in the entire Tanakh. And for several reasons, but here, think of the self-sacrifice. The whole point was that Leah shouldn't be substituted for Rachel. And she sees it happening. What they were about to happen. Okay, she should have said, "No, we made it up. She won't know the signs, and it'll be stopped in midstream, and it won't happen." She thought, but she'll be humiliated. I can't do that. I can't do that. So she gave the signs. Do you know what she gave up? Not only that Jacob married Leah first. How long was the difference in time between the two marriages?
11.
Wait, a week, no?
How long was the time between the two marriages, Leah and then Rachel?
14.
7 days.
Yeah, a week.
Male Shvu Azos. End the day, 7 days is celebrating for this one, and then stay with me another 7 years. No, the difference was only 7 days. But Jacob married 2 sisters. Torah doesn't allow marrying 2 sisters in a lifetime. Says the Ramban, it was Chutz La'aretz, it was outside the land of Israel, and they didn't resolve voluntarily to keep the laws of the Torah outside the land of Israel. So he married the 2 sisters. And then what happened? Well, Leah had children, and Rachel didn't have children. Then Rachel finally had a child. And then at a certain point, Yaakov says, "Let's go. I want to go home." And Lavan, after the second 7 years, and Lavan says, I see that I'm doing so well. Please don't leave me. Out of gratitude, he stays another 6 years. How long have Rachel and Yaakov been married? 13 years, right? Then they come back to the land of Israel. What happens when they reach the land of Israel? Rachel dies. Because now they're in the land of Israel. So she dies in childbirth. They were married for exactly 13 years. Rachel gave up a lot. She gave up a lot. It's astonishing that she should do that. She's given gigantic credit by Psukim later in Nach, and also by Chazal. But there's another thing here. How did she have the right to cheat on Yaakov? They made an agreement. She now feels that her sister shouldn't be humiliated. Okay, that's what you feel. What right do you have to deceive Yaakov? I have a theory here, and as I have said many times, when I say I have a theory, I'm inviting you to ask other people, see what they say, see whether they would agree. Nowhere in the Jewish tradition is Rachel criticized for this. That means that what she's doing is right. Somehow it's right. The question is to figure out how it's right. Well, Rabbi Avraham ben Rambam, the Rambam's son, wrote a sefer, Mas B'Glov Hashem, how to serve God appropriately. And he points out that when Yonasan and his Nosei Kelim, Yonasan and his servant went out to confront a whole army, that's putting yourself in danger. You are forbidden to put yourself in danger, especially mortal danger. Now, as it happens, the army had fled, and they weren't harmed. But how do they do it? So the Rambam says on his own authority that they had Ruach HaKodesh. But Yonah said you had Ruach HaKodesh. He had not real prophecy, but close enough to it. And he says that the only time you can put yourself in danger is when a Kodesh Baruch Hu certifies it. And he can certify it through prophecy or Ruach HaKodesh. Now here, Rabbi Yaakov and Rambam is saying this on his own to explain why they did something which normally would be forbidden, but they're never criticized in the tradition, and gives us an explanation. So I'm inclined to use that as the explanation here also. The reason Rachel did it and not tell Yaakov is because she had Ruach HaKodesh, that this was the right thing to do. And that's why nowhere is she ever criticized, nor does Yaakov criticize her, because in fact it was the right thing to do. Yeah.
That was my question. That means that also Yaakov understood that was the right thing to do, and therefore not even him rebuked her.
Yeah, in other words, he understood that, or maybe she told him, but he understood that she wouldn't have done it unless she had Ruach HaKodesh. He wouldn't doubt her moral probity that she shouldn't do something like that without consulting with him. Consulting with it wasn't possible because she shouldn't have done it, right? Right, yeah.
Is it maybe Yaakov is, instead of confronting Lavan directly and trying to find a way to above board resolve this so that the guy doesn't cheat him, he's plotting with her sort of on the sidelines to arrange this.
Sorry, he's done both, right? At the outset he said, Rachel bitcha haktana. That was clearly why he was doing it. Now he's suspicious that he'll try anyway, so he tries to stop it that way, right?
So it wouldn't be the case that this kind of side plotting isn't something that in some sense he needs to be punished for as a result? No. Indeed, we spoke about this once, and maybe I'll go back over it again. Everything he got throughout his life, up until a certain point, when he became Yisrael, he got by taking it away from somebody else. And that was his position in life until that. That's why he came out holding the Esau's heel, as if to say, I have to take it from you. Yeah.
Before, when Yaakov's first talking to Lavan about it, he was very detailed, and he says every single word in the right way to make sure Lavan can't cheat him. When it comes to the night of the marriage, I do in the night, do in the day. If you think do something, do.
Because it's not consummated. He'll call it off. He'll call it off. He won't agree to go through with it.
So then don't consummate it if you don't know. Wait until you...
But he does know. He gave signs to Rachel, and this woman who's with him is giving the signs. So of course it's Rachel. How could it be anyone else? He has no doubts. He shouldn't have any doubts. Nothing went wrong. He gave her the signs, and the woman's giving the signs. So it's Rachel. Yeah.
Can you just repeat the reason as to why, what specifically would Rachel thought would be good about doing this?
The humiliation. So I that's why I leaned on Ruach HaKodesh, because I don't see any normal moral or spiritual principle which says you made an agreement with somebody, but somebody's going to be humiliated, and therefore you can break the principle, break the agreement because you're sensitive to that humiliation. I don't know of any such principle. So that's why I leaned on Ruach HaKodesh.
Why can't we take halacha from this specifically? Because there's a certain practical aspect from it? In a situation...
So I don't know, I think what you have to understand is that you can't do that. You can't imitate her. You made an agreement with somebody, so on and so on, and then it comes out indirectly that you didn't anticipate that if I go through with the agreement, someone will be humiliated, and you simply void the agreement. I don't think you can do that.
That's why I'm confused as to why.
Why what?
Why can't we do it if she was able?
Again, because she only had Ruach HaKodesh to do it. She wasn't told. She was, it was. She was felt this, and she was given Ruach HaKodesh. You don't generalize from something like that. Okay, wonderful to be back.